Thanks for being here. My campaign was about local councils, and I just want to talk a bit about it. So, starting off, when I think about my identity as a citizen, I think about the local area that I live in. When I first started thinking more deeply about modern slavery, I was shocked to discover that it was happening everywhere, but that so often it was invisible. Knowing this, I wanted to know more about what my local council was doing to take action. As the local elections had been held in my borough, Harrow, before this, I was curious about whether my council was doing anything about an issue that I learned must be taking place in my neighbourhood. Many people don't often think about councils because we don't pay council tax as students. But this doesn't mean that we can't ask them to do more or better with taxpayers' money. I was really pleased to hear back quickly from Harrow Council. I was happy to see that they had given me more information than I had asked for, and to see that they were already working with charities such as Hestia and taking leadership with the ECPAT project. But the more I learned, the more I saw that councils have a huge role to play, not only in making local people aware of trafficking and modern slavery, which is really important when they're monitoring nail salon, car washes, and local building sites, but in addressing their own supply chains and hiring practices. Most councils have enormous budgets because they are spending on local services like libraries, road repairs, bin collections, and so on and so forth. Harrow's budget for the last financial year was £165 million. The Modern Slavery Act in 2015 obliged businesses with an annual turnover of £36 million or more to make a statement to ensure that during the financial year, slavery and human trafficking is not taking place in either any part of its own business or any of its supply chains at any level. Now I believe £36 million is a lot less than £165 million. Now I believe that accountability is really important. Politicians make promises all the time that they don't always keep. When we see that they do keep them, it builds trust, and that is good for building citizenship. If we want people, young people like myself, to participate in politics, we need them to see that words are being put into actions, and particularly that the most vulnerable are being protected. I want to know that my council is not complicit in modern slavery. I want to know that when services are provided, they are not being subcontracted in ways that mean workers are being exploited. I want building projects in my borough to use materials that are ethical, not from sources like slave labor or child labor in other countries. I'm sure you guys want this too. I also want council employees to be aware of modern slavery so that if they come across it, they can protect people in our boroughs. I don't think that we can expect less of our councils, which are supposed to serve people in our boroughs and are spending taxpayers' money, than we expect of businesses. We can hold businesses to account as consumers by boycotting them, but we can't do the same with our councils. We need them to take leadership for us. Now, we've already started taking action. We've sent questions to all 32 London boroughs, including the City of London, and so far we've received a positive response. Many councils have let us know about their policies, guidelines, and interest in further action, like a voluntary statement about how they can fight against modern slavery. But some haven't. And if they can't respond to an email, how can we expect them to take further action and leadership on this issue? Some councils are already taking leadership, and I'm excited that Raki from Croydon Council will be sharing her insider perspective with us next. But I think we all want to know that our leaders are doing everything they can so that we are not contributing to modern slavery in any way as taxpayers. I encourage you to write to your councils or councillors all over the country, and you can find out more information with the paper handout that you should have all got coming in, and on our Wonders website. I hope that this campaign draws attention to how modern slavery can be fought against on a local level. It can only happen if we raise awareness and hold our leaders accountable to promises made tackling modern slavery. Only then can we ensure modern slavery is a thing of the past. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Raki Dev Shah, and I head up the commissioning and procurement function at the London Borough of Croydon. Let me just start by saying how inspiring it's been listening to everyone speak this evening, particularly the young people who have put forward their case with so much passion. It's quite admirable, and I feel incredibly inspired by everything that's been said this evening. It's always a bit difficult to be last on the list to speak because everyone's said so much about the impact of modern slavery on the victims, in the hospitality industry. So I'd like to talk about my journey from ignorance to action, and also tell you a bit about Croydon Council and what we're doing in Croydon Council. So come with me on this journey and just humour me a bit. I was really pleased to hear Sarah say that it was only a couple of years ago that she became aware of slavery in present day. We all thought it was eradicated many years ago. It was a couple of years ago for me too. It was my 10-year-old daughter who came home from school one evening and said to me, "I've volunteered for the Lily Trust in Croydon." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. What do they do then?" And she said, "Well, they put packages together for victims of modern slavery." I'm Croydon born and bred, lived there all my life, and only left for university. So I said, "Oh, modern slavery. So do you ship those packages abroad then?" And she said, "No, Ma. It's for victims in Croydon." That was the first point at which I thought, oh, I had to look clever in front of my daughter and said, "Yeah, of course, that makes complete sense." A couple of years later, I became the head of commissioning and procurement in Croydon. And the question I asked myself in that role is, where is the problem in our supply chain? So last time I looked at our spend analysis, we didn't have any nail salons or car washes on Croydon Council's spend analysis. Yes, hotels, absolutely. So where's the problem? So I did some research, and I found out that 58% of those living in slavery globally are in just 5 countries: India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Uzbekistan. And the countries that have the highest proportion of slaves per population are Uzbekistan, India again, North Korea, Cambodia, and Qatar. So no United Kingdom in there. Another sigh of relief. But then, unfortunately, they broke it down a bit more for me. So let's take an example, for example, Pakistan. So the US State Department publishes a list of products and countries that those products are made in. And in that publication, they talked about many Pakistani boys assigned away to bonded labour at the age of 13, with a contract that lasts up to 30 years. Many of these boys are involved in making things like cotton, sugarcane, wheat, bricks, carpets, coal, glass, and even surgical instruments. That's when the penny dropped. I don't know if any of you have been to Croydon recently, but there's a lot of building works going on. And while our contract managers are encouraged to, when they go for meetings, to look out for signs of modern slavery in the workers, I'm not entirely sure we were checking out where the bricks were coming from or where the material was coming from. So that is where, for me, was the light bulb moment. And I said, okay, we need to do something about this. We need to make sure that our contract managers, who are our face of the council, are aware of this, just like I have taken the initiative to become aware of it. So we talked a little bit about the legislation, and I'm really pleased we have. But there's the United Nations Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, 2011, which set out a duty of businesses to protect and act with due diligence to avoid infringing the rights of others and address any negative impacts. There's also the Modern Slavery Act, which we've spoken about. Now, Section 54 of that Act requires all commercial organisations that turn over more than £36 billion per annum to publish an annual slavery and human trafficking statement saying what they have done in the year to address risks to human rights in their supply chains, or that they have done nothing. So, just emphasising that last point, or that they have done nothing. In my humble opinion, just complying with that legislation is not enough for Croydon Council. Any business worth its salt or organisation that buys goods and services, if they're really serious about removing modern slavery, we need to map out our supply chains. We need to understand what we are getting, where from, and get an idea of the risk that exists in our supply chain. So that's my journey from ignorance to action. Now the Croydon journey, if you like. So having got all of this information, having felt motivated to take action, I did what every self-respecting local government officer does, which is had a meeting with key stakeholders around the room. And Anthony's in the room right now, and I'm going to embarrass him. He's on our adult social care side. But this meeting was a bit different because for a change, we had the officers that are on the front line that are dealing with the victims of modern slavery in the same room as the officers that control the purse strings for the council. So this meeting felt really different, and it wasn't the only meeting, and we came out of it with an action plan, which was really, really helpful. So to give you a bit of context for those that aren't familiar with Croydon as a place, Croydon has a population of around 390,000 people. It covers around 9.5 square miles. It spends approximately £1.1 billion per year on providing services, works and goods, and 400 million of that is spent with suppliers. So our leverage is that 400 million to change the behaviours, the attitude of our supply chain. We take modern slavery and human trafficking very seriously, and I'm fortunate enough to have councillors who are backing the actions that we are taking and backing our action plan that we've developed. We take it very seriously as a recruiter, so we do the necessary checks that we need to do. We are a London Living Wage borough, so we make sure that we pay London Living Wage as a minimum, but also our suppliers pay London Living Wage. We sign up to the Pan-London Multi-Agency Safeguarding Policies and Procedures, and we have launched an internal 5-step process for recording the Council's actions for all cases of suspected slavery. Earlier, Olivia, you said that you weren't quite sure how we could eradicate modern slavery. I'm quite clear. Modern slavery for me is not, it is a crime against humanity, of course it is, but it's also a financial crime. And that's actually, if we think about the purpose of the reason why it exists today, is because of the money. So to remove or eradicate modern slavery, we need to remove the reason for it being. And we can do that by being careful about where we are spending our money. In Croydon, the actions that we've taken is that we have developed this action plan. We have trained all of our officers. So in October, we ran a week of training for officers around all the things that are important to us when we do business. And that included a session on modern slavery prevention. It included the journey, taking officers on the same journey that I went on to understand the signs of modern slavery, the impact, the human impact it has on society, and the importance of sustainable rehabilitation and support for the victims, because eventually that will pay dividends to the local Croydon community. Those victims, if they have the support that they need, they will be in jobs in Croydon, they will be investing and buying in Croydon, and therefore growing the local economy. So there is an incentive there to do that, provide that support. So I was really pleased to hear about the support that you were talking of. We are working with, in our terms and conditions, we have included a criteria that all of our suppliers are required to ensure that there is no modern slavery in the supply chain and in their subcontracted supply chains. Our stick is that if we discover that they are in breach of that clause, we reserve the right to terminate our contract with them. Now that's all well and good. It's only good if we exercise that power. So we're really, really aware that our contract managers need constant reminding of modern slavery prevention in the supply chain. And to do that on a quarterly basis, we ask them to check the statements of the suppliers that have over a £36 million turnover. just to make sure that they're not saying they're doing nothing, for starters. We are also asking them to encourage other suppliers that may not have a £36 million turnover to sign up and put their statements up and understand what their obligations are. We're offering training to voluntary and community organisations who perhaps need a bit more training in this regard, and so they can also spread the word for us. We're encouraging suppliers to have whistleblowing policies for their staff, so that they can, without worrying about reprisal, flag any issues that they come across. We are encouraging suppliers to ensure that staff are entitled to having a trade union membership in their organisations. We are starting those conversations about how important modern slavery prevention is from the very beginning, from the earliest conversations we are having with suppliers, and following it through our contract management. Now, fortunately, we haven't been in the position where we've had to terminate a contract, but should it come to that, we will not hesitate, because we are very, very clear we will not tolerate modern slavery in our supply chain. We've done a lot, we've still got a lot to do. There are suppliers that we need to go and visit and raise their awareness so that their staff, junior, senior staff, are aware of the signs of modern slavery. We need to do a lot more around publishing our action plan and making everybody aware of what we're doing, so other local authorities can see what we're doing and we can share some of our experiences and our learnings. We need to raise awareness. We need to work with local anchor organisations such as the University Hospital, the college, and get them to start thinking in the same way that we are, because it isn't just about the council, it's much, much bigger than that. So I propose that we can eradicate modern slavery. We can do it one locality at a time, and with a sustainable recovery package for the people that have been unfortunate victims of modern slavery. Thank you.